What's going on? So we're going to talk about French contrast training. So when we look at French contrast training, you have to understand what the goal is. So when we look at contrast training, this whole idea of it being called French contrast training is specifically targeting 4 exercises. But contrast training could be 2 exercises, it could be 3, it could be 4. The goal is to seek out potentiation from heavy loaded and then rapidly deloading those movements, implementing, velocity-based plyometric speed movements. So French contrast training is going to have 4 exercises, and then there's contrast, you could have 3, but it's always going to start from some heavy loaded movement. So that can come under 2 constraints. You can do a heavy barbell loaded movement where the intensity is extremely high and heavy. So that could be, a 90 to 100, whether it's, using reverse bands and loading it that way. And then the second way you can do it, you can do a overcoming isometric. So the 2 options would be, loading up a trap bar deadlift for, 2 heavy reps at 95% or at 110% with reverse bands. So a supermax style. Or you could do a overcoming isometric from pins, whether it's a squat or deadlift. And the goal is to create max intensity. You have to have an athlete that's strong enough that can pull from the pins or push into the pins. You can even do a bench press with some intensity. If someone's not very strong, this isn't going to benefit them. So I like to make sure my athletes are doing 1.5, 2 times their body weight in a deadlift, somewhere along those lines. And then you go into a overspeed movement. So you could take a resistance band and do like an overspeed jump. You could do something along those lines. I do a lot of the resistance band pogo hops, so you can get really high. Because again, you're potentiating the intensity from the weighted lift, and then you're going to be able to jump much higher. So you're going to teach your nervous system how to jump it higher than what you can naturally do. And then you go into a loaded movement. So it could be any type of plyometric with weight, a weighted vertical jump. It could be, a sled push, a bound, something along those lines. Has to be lightly loaded, but not extremely heavy. And then you break off into a body weight plyo. So it could be a vertical jump, it could be, a sprint, it could be something along those lines. And then once you've completed all 4 movements, you have to rest and recover. And all of our programming, if you notice on Train Heroic, right, it's gonna have this rest period circuit. So that means you would produce 1 set of your French contrast training, and then you would do that rest circuit and do those exercises, because I don't like athletes just sitting around doing nothing. So we're gonna fill it with some helpers, right? So it could be an ab exercise, it could be a mobility exercise, it could be it could be an isometric, something that's gonna benefit movement overall. And then we go into the next set. So typically for French contrast training, we're gonna go anywhere from 3 to 5 sets. Because the athlete is going to need to learn how to rest and recover in order to be able to produce the same amount of force. Because the goal isn't to, the goal isn't to help someone get crazy strong. We're peaking, right? So we're peaking from what we've done before. So sometimes we do this if an athlete is heading into their season, if an athlete is just hitting a sticking point. We've had athletes that every month they hit 28 inches on their vertical, which means, we got to change up the nervous system, change up the stimulus so they can, get over that hump and help them, become more athletic. So again, French contrast training is going to have 4 exercises. It's going to be a crazy heavy, overspeed, fast movement, a loaded movement, and then a body weight, velocity, plyo, sprint, something along those lines. So I hope that kind of makes sense of what French contrast training is and helps you program it, but also follow the programming at the gym. So just to piggyback, that rest period should be anywhere from like 2 to 4 minutes, depending on the athlete, maybe 5. But again, we're going to do some fillers so they're not sitting around doing nothing.